first of all, I'd like to hand over to Peter, who he will tell you a lot about himself and his very rich life. But he was one of the founding members of Stoke Mandeville Spinal Research and now acts as an ambassador for us. So I'll hand over to Peter. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? Derek, give me a thumb up if people can hear me. Yeah, I think they probably can. Brilliant. Fantastic. So for those who haven't come across me, I know some of you may have before, my name is Pete Apps. I'm 40 years old. I've got a C4 level spinal injury. And 15 years ago this September, I was a young 25-year-old foreign correspondent for Reuters news agency in Sri Lanka, covering the Sri Lankan Civil War. When my minibus hit a tractor, I slammed into the windscreen of my skull and I blew out my third, fourth and fifth vertebrae and woke up over the front end of the vehicle, completely paralyzed. There I was lying in my vehicle. You open your eyes, you realize that you're lying on the front of a vehicle, you realize that the engine noise is gone, you realize that, and you realize very fast that your life has changed pretty unimaginably. And a whole bunch of thoughts go through your mind, but the most obvious is sort of, what is my life going to look like? And you come to a bunch of conclusions, and they're not necessarily an awful lot of fun. Then, back to the UK, doing rehab and so forth, re-entering a life since. I've been very lucky. I've been able to stay and work, so I've kept working for Reuters for the last 15 years. I've done various jobs for them. I was emerging markets correspondent during the crash. I was a global defense correspondent for a bit. And more recently, I've been a global affairs commentator and columnist, writing on sort of the way the world is going badly wrong, a gift that has kept on giving. I also do several other things. I founded a think tank about 5 years ago with a project study of the 21st century. And for the last 5 years, I've also been a British Army reservist, so part-time soldier, the most disabled part-time soldier anywhere. For the last year, during COVID-19, I was called up by the Army full-time as a captain doing analysis.
Recording in progress.
Which is I talk very much about some kind of feedback from somebody. Okay, hopefully that's fixed that. That's brilliant. So a variety of things, living as full a life as I can with a serious spinal cord injury. What's it really like? It's really challenging, is the first thing to say. If you're as paralyzed as I am, I drive a wheelchair to my head. As you can see, I've got one left arm that works a bit, no working hands that I move. You're very dependent on care. You're very dependent on things working out, equipment. I use voice recognition software to write. I also have two carers living in. You use a whole bunch of things to keep things going together. Can you make it work? Yes, you can. I think the truth is that my life now is a lot fuller than I thought it would be when I was injured 15 years ago. I can operate fairly independently. I have a pretty good life, and there are all kinds of things about it that I really quite like. I also done stuff in Labour Party politics. I ran to be one of the candidates in Vauxhall in 2019. So I'm actually getting stuck into all kinds of bits of the world, doing things, having interesting experiences, interacting with people, and it's enough to make you feel almost, or sometimes even entirely human. Okay, that's wonderful. That's very uplifting. Everyone knows they don't want a spinal cord injury. Everyone knows that they do get one. They want to stay part of the world. Where does Stoke Mandeville Spinal Research come into that? Well, the point is that the issues that lead to you either being in or out of the world are actually really quite simple, fiddly, and really, really, really life-altering. So obviously, there's the real basics, wheelchairs, care, all that kind of stuff. We've got a pretty good understanding in this country of how that works. We do it pretty well. We give our relatively heavily disabled people relatively good standard of living here, particularly if they're independent, don't need care. And if you do need care, then if you're lucky, you get it. Where does it start to go wrong? Well, if you have a spinal cord injury, there are a bunch of areas which really, really screw up your life and that really worry about, you really worry about. The first things you worry about when you get injured are, am I going to do things? Am I going to have sex? Am I going to work? Am I going to travel? Gradually, you work out how you can do those things. And then gradually, you start to realize the things that go wrong. And taking them in no particular order. Actually, I'm going to take them in the order which they went wrong with me. Why not? Where do they go wrong with me? Firstly, urinary tract infections. I don't get that. I don't get that many. I can just about handle them reasonably well. They can really, really hit you hard though. I got hospitalized for on and off for several weeks in 2009 with a really, really persistent UTI. And they come and go. I mean, women will, women on this call will know that, They're not a lot of fun. They can really sort of hit you for six. You end up sort of, you're shivering, you're unable to operate. First, fun fact, first week of COVID, as the world was sort of falling apart, I got a UTI, which was absolutely brilliant because it meant I was running a temperature and feeling really bad as the rest of the world was shutting down. UTI is really not a good thing, very hard to stop. The research that Stoke Mandeville's Spinal Foundation does on that is really useful. Second point, even more serious, pressure sores. If you have a pressure sore, you can't really stay in your wheelchair, which means that your entire life that you've rebuilt vanishes as you lie on your side and go from one side to the other for, I don't know, weeks, months. I had a very persistent but not particularly serious pressure sore or sort of a lesion on my tailbone. That took out 2013, 14, and 15 for me pretty much. There was a couple of months where I only got up once or twice. Totally wrecks your ability part of the world. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do, relationships, work, yes, we can all work from bed, we can all work from home. We understand that now after COVID. It's really unpleasant. And that's a really important one. Upper limb use. Again, entertaining anecdote from my personal life. I was stuck in a lift at Victoria yesterday because I have an arm that is just about good enough to press those big lift buttons on the underground. But I discovered in hot weather, I lose a lot of muscle tone. And so that arm doesn't work quite as well. So I was stuck in the lift for about 10 minutes till someone got me out. Anything that can win back that tiny bit of extra function is really important. What you can see then, there's no opposable thumb, no fingers that move. Every tiny bit of assistive technology and or rehab that gives you back that bit of upper limb mobility is massively life-changing for people. And that's really, really important. And then the bigger picture, which is what all of that kind of leads into, and I'm very aware that I've got 2 minutes left until I hit the 2:15 point. All of this stuff allows you to be a full and proper member of society. And that is really what you crave if you're someone like me. You're absolutely terrified about being fenced out of society and essentially locked up in worst case scenarios in institution, and found that just fenced out of all the things that you want. People with spinal cord injury can have partners, they can have sex lives, they can have children, they can have employment, they can do all kinds of things, but all of these issues are real barriers to that. And that means that you take someone who would otherwise have a relatively full and functional life, and you put them in a situation where they basically have one of two realities, which is that they either don't want to be alive, but stay alive for either other people because they can't find a way out, or they want to kind of find a way out. This is really, really, really sort of heavy stuff for people. Where I stand on resilience is fairly simple. When I was first injured, my thoughts were, I need to stay as much part of this world as I can, because the more I can stay part of the world, the more I will keep the things that I want. And that meant firstly staying in work. Well, so actually, firstly staying in work, secondly staying healthy, and then thirdly finding opportunities you can move forward into. Is it challenging? Absolutely, of course it is. Would anyone want to enjoy this? No, of course they wouldn't. But you can just about make it work. Again, providing you can keep those issues at bay. And that's where SMSR is really, really useful, because someone like me might well last like 50 years after being injured. I've done 15 so far. My ability to last over that period is dependent firstly on avoiding those kind of, those are the things that like to kill me, right? The urinary tract infection, infested pressure sore, whatever. Those are very high on the list of things that might actually sort of into my life. But more importantly, they just render it almost unlivable if you're not careful. And so the more we can tackle that, the better. I'm going to now, I know we've got to 2:15, I'm going to hand back to Derek, and he will hand over to our very fine researchers. But before we do that, I just want to say a huge thanks to the researchers, both those today and those who've worked on other things, because it's really, if you're someone like me, this is the really life-altering stuff. Yes, as Derek says, maybe one day someone will fix this. I'm not going to hold my breath. What I want is fixes for my everyday problems. What I want is solutions, and SMSR is actually pretty good at trying to find those solutions, and that is really, really valuable. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Peter. That's a really excellent talk. Thank you. So good to hear firsthand, and so good to hear the uplifting stuff, and the not so uplifting, very challenging stuff. So thank you very much for sharing your experience with us.